Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest album from Midnight, Rebirth by Blasphemy, out January 24th on Metal Blade Records. This album has 10 tracks, 34 minutes in length, and this is Midnight's 4th studio album. This album can be defined in one word: simplicity. Simple lyrics, simple approach, simple structure, simple sound, simple way to go about in creating a very intense and aggressive record without putting too much around it, without putting too much fluff to it. This is a bare bones, raw, very aggressive, very intense, very dynamic record. I love it. Simplicity in this case for an album like this is not a negative at all. It's actually a huge positive. You want a record that has this kind of sound to be simple in its approach. You don't need it to be overcomplicated. You need to get the raw feel of each and every song when you listen to it. You don't need all of these all of this dressing around to make the songs feel like something that they're not. The songs are meant to be pure rock and roll tracks with a more blackened vibe to it that have really great choruses, really catchy and hooky choruses that will stay with you from the moment you listen to the song for the first time. That is what this album is all about. The structure is not really important at all. This is an album that could be played front to back to front, on shuffle. It doesn't really matter how you listen to this record. It doesn't matter the order of the songs. You're always going to get what the album has to offer to you. To me, that's because the album has songs, while unique and different from each other, they have some commonalities, they have some common grounds. They all have this raw sound to it. They all have these really catchy, hooky choruses. They all have great guitar riffs, great solos, great way of creating songs that are quick, fast, intense, and aggressive. So to me, while each single song on the record has its own uniqueness to it, they still all have enough in common that allows the album to feel very concise, to feel very together, and not really be dependent on an album structure or on a track listing. Having said that, I really like that they start with fucking Speed and Darkness. That's the first track on the album, because if there's one song on this record that can really define, be the synopsis, if you will, of the sound, of the atmosphere that this record is to offer, it's the opening track. This album is fucking Speed and Darkness. That's what you're gonna get from the first song that has that as the title, and you're gonna get that from the rest of the songs all the way through to the end of the record. To me, this is a balls to the wall, a rock and roll, maybe even punk rock album with definitely black metal influences into the mix. That is the overall sound, that is the overall approach when you look at the structure of the songs, when you look at how the songs are created, and definitely you see that as well in the way the choruses are put together. How hooky, how catchy those choruses are, really has a little bit of punk rock in it. Really straight to the point, one-liners, easy to understand, easy to follow behind, easy to sing along in a live setting. So it has all of these condiments that you really see permeate in punk and in punk rock. I really like that. I really like that aspect of the album. It just has great life built into these 10 tracks. Now, you can look at this album from a different perspective. You can even consider it to be something that perhaps it's not. But I think when you look under the hood, what I just told you is exactly what you're going to find with Rebirth by Blasphemy. Now, as far as vocals are concerned, I really love the darkness in the vocals. They add a little bit of blackness to the sound. While the sound is very raw, has a very punk rock feel to it, the vocals definitely bring in a little bit of rawness. They really allow the song to create a little bit more darkness around. So the vocals add darkness to the tracks, they add atmosphere, and they add a little bit of black metal to the overall feel and sound that the record has to offer. From the guitarist perspective, I love everything that this album has to offer. I love the guitar riffs, I love the melodies, the solos are incredible. Like, they really were able to create solos that added life to the songs. Like, if the song was very dynamic, very aggressive, the solo sometimes brought even more of that aggression to the forefront. In other cases, it brought more melody, so it counterbalanced the dynamic that the song had going into the solo. They were always able to create the right solo for the right song, putting it in the right place in order to give the track the boost that it needed to take it all the way to the end. Not really overly complicated solos, not really overly extended solos, short, concise, compact, but solos that really added life, that gave oxygen to the fire that the tracks had. I really enjoy the guitar work on this album. It's absolutely phenomenal. Perhaps it's going to go a little bit under the radar for some people, not understanding the full length and the full scope of guitar work that this album has to offer. It may seem at times that some songs have similar feels, similar approaches. They don't. Once you look under the hood and you start really realizing the guitar work that went into putting this record together, you understand all the dynamics, all the little intricacies, all the details on where the solos are, or how the riffs are put together, or how the melody of the song is, or exiting a chorus, how they put a little bit of a flare, a little bit of a guitar flare there to just give a little bit of darkness or melody to the song. So the guitar work on this album, to me, while feeling at points simple, it's not. It's actually more complex than it is simple. It sounds simple, but it's not simple at all. So overall, this album to me is not going to surprise the fans of the band. To me, the fans of Midnight will feel like this album is what the band is all about. So I don't think this album is going to create any surprise whatsoever. What I think this album will do is it will bring new fans to the band. This is their first release with Metal Blade Records. So I feel that being with a label this size will definitely open doors that were not open before. And then when you put an album this hooky, this catchy, this melodic, this heavy, this aggressive, that has so many different components and yet is so simple, so easy to digest, on a label like this, you're gonna definitely open the doors to mainstream. You're definitely gonna get new fans paying attention to this band. And I think this perhaps is gonna be one of those albums that in the future, when you look back, is gonna be a determining factor for the success of this band going forward. Alright guys, as far as songs are concerned, I picked 3 tracks that I felt that had something different to offer. Not necessarily my favorite tracks. Fucking Speed and Darkness is definitely one of my favorite tracks. Also Rebirth by Blasphemy, the second song on the album, is absolutely phenomenal. Those two are definitely a 1-2 punch. When you start the album and you get those 2 tracks, man, you know what you're in for the rest of the album. So I stayed away from those 2 songs. I tried to pick songs that had a little bit of a different feel, and I want to start with Devil's Excrement, a song that has some roots, in my opinion, in punk rock, just the way it's delivered, but it's delivered with a more blackened vibe to it. And I really like that. It has great tempos. It never really loses that blistering speed going from the verses to the chorus. They're blended in very perfectly with each other. You really don't feel a drop in aggression. You really don't feel a drop in intensity. The melody slightly changes on the guitar going from one to the other, and that's really the only clue that you get, that you're moving in from the verses into the chorus. The simplicity of the lyrics in the chorus is something that I mentioned before, and it's something that's present on every song on this record, this one being no different. It just really wraps up the song perfectly. It's hooky, it's catchy, it really works well. The solo is magnificent. It has a punk rock Motorhead vibe to the way the solo is put together. I really like that. I really feel that it works extremely well for this specific track. And then it adds great melody to a track that's very raw, that really needs something in order to get a little bit more aggression going for this specific song. Second, Cursed Possessions, killer riff, a song that starts with an absolutely killer, blackened, pure rock and roll, really darkened riff. It just oozes darkness from that guitar riff, and I absolutely love it. It starts off like that, and it really stays true throughout the song. A song that has very 2 different sounding and dynamic parts while staying dark through both of them, and that's the verses in the chorus. While the previous song, Devil's Excrement, kind of blended the chorus with the verse very well. It was kind of almost hard to tell where one ends and the other one starts. This song does the complete opposite. It really breaks those 2 apart. You really get a definite feel where the verses are versus where the chorus is. So there's definitely a different dynamic within this track. And it's a track that just really breaks itself apart by really creating walls between those 2 different portions of the song. The chorus brings darkness, it slows things down. I felt that the verses were a lot more dynamic, still dark, but they become darker in the chorus because when you slow it down, it really gives more emphasis to the darkness aspect that the song has, and I really like that. The chorus, once again, very simple, very catchy, very hooky, easy to really digest and sing along. It's like one-liners, and I really like that. I like that simplicity. It's very punk. That simplicity in the chorus is definitely very punk. The solo on this track adds a great melody to the song. For a song that's a lot darker, the solo does the opposite of Devil's Excrement. In this song, I felt the solo went in a more melodic and a more dynamic, almost like a boost of energy to a song that at times felt very dark and very somber, very slow. So instead of going with a solo that matched the life that the song had, they went with a solo that gave life to the song. I really enjoy that about Cursed Possessions. Last but not least, The Sounds of Hell, another song that has great riff, great sounding riff, very dynamic, very boisterous, if you will. It really gives the song a very dynamic, pushing forward kind of vibe. This song has a very interesting style because it has this stop and go feel. I really like that. It changes the way the song is. There's no other song like that on the record. It has a very distinct approach, and that to me is important because a lot of the same elements that you saw on every single track leading up to this point are present in this song, so you needed something that breaks it apart from the rest. And that stop and go feel, to me, it's something that really defines this track. It gives it a different feel. Another song, I know I'm repeating myself, but another song with a very catchy and hooky chorus. This is really something that you're going to get on all 10 songs on this record. It's songs that have these really catchy and hooky choruses that are easy to remember, one-liners. You listen to the song once, you already know what's coming in the next chorus, and you start singing along. All of the tracks on this record have that characteristic. This is another simple and effective song. Magnificent solo. It really brings power and melody to the song. I really felt the solo really added energy to this song, and it kind of pulled from different portions of the song. This is a solo that doesn't come out of left field, and it doesn't necessarily fully represent what the song was up to this point. It's kind of a merger of those two. It has a little bit of the dynamic that the song had up until that point, but it also gives something new that you didn't have in the song leading up to the solo. So I really like that. After the solo, the song starts to merge back into the chorus as it leads all the way towards the end of the track, finishing with a very beautiful guitar flourish, very old school. This is a very throwback, old school vibe in the way it's constructed, in the way it's put together, how the solo brings in something that the song has and also brings something from the outside, and more important, how from the solo you lead into the chorus, then you lead into closing off the song with a very nice guitar flourish. These are all elements that you normally find in old school tracks, old school rock and roll, old school black metal tracks. You don't see a lot of bands taking this specific approach with songs these days, but I really like it. It was very refreshing. It really fit perfectly in the overall feel, atmosphere that this record had all the way from track 1 to track 10. Alright guys, this is it. This is Midnight Rebirth by Blasphemy, out January 24th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band. Use the comment section below. As always, I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.